been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out RV Daydream, and today I'm going to tackle another little project on my truck. I'm not going to cover step by step. Actually, I have another channel for that, for the guys that want to know more about the repairs, but I will show you the overall progress on what I'm doing today. That's the differential cover and the fuel filter. Here's the fuel filter. Of course, I got both of these at Amazon like I do everything else, and the reason that I go with an original Motorcraft is because of the way that the tool that releases it from the line fits on the Motorcraft versus the cheaper brands. As far as the differential cover, if you find anything on Amazon, look below, and I've mentioned this before, there's different buying options, and one of the other buying options is used. And even though it says used, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily used. And you can see here it was inspected by the Amazon warehouse deals crew, and if you look at this cover, it's not going to be damaged at all. So here it is, and you can see it doesn't look very used. It comes with a gasket. It's got a little nick right here, but other than that, it's never been bolted down. It's not distorted in any way, and it looks like new. The reason that I always check that used stuff is because if the packaging is damaged or the product has a little scratch in it or something like that, anything a customer can complain about, and quite frankly, there's some picky people out there, they can't sell it as new. They can't sell it as refurbished, so the only other category is used. In addition to the rear end cover, I also needed to get fluid, and there's a lot of different choices. You need to make some decisions based on what you're going to be using this for and how you think it's going to best be served. So in my case, I went with the synthetic, and the reason is because I'm in a cold climate. So when I first fire this thing up and I'm trying to get out of the driveway in the winter, I don't want that fluid to be really thick. So the posi track or the track lock or whatever you want to call it, the limited slip, I want to make sure that it's working correctly, and I've got a synthetic fluid that flows really well in cold conditions. For you guys that don't know about the number system that is on oil or fluids in this case, the first number with the W behind it, that's a winter number. And all that means is what it flows like when it's cold out. And then the other number, the higher number usually, is what it flows at whenever it's really hot. So it's a viscosity rating. The 75W, how thin it is and how fluid it is whenever it's cold. And then that higher number is how thick it is whenever it gets hot. So it works in conjunction with the temperature of what the rear end in this case will be experiencing. So I'll pick up a little bit later on here whenever I'm underneath the truck and I'm starting to tear it apart, and you guys can follow along a little bit and see what's involved with this repair. Alright guys, you can see why I'm going to change the cover. This one's pretty crappy, so let me go ahead and start pulling some bolts off and letting the fluid drain out, and I'll show you what it looks like as far as the new one and it going on. Now on these rear ends there's an ID tag that's over here. Pay attention to that, be careful with it, and clean it up, maybe paint it so it can stay to where it can be read for your own knowledge, and also then for future users of the vehicle if you decide to sell your truck on down the road. This tells what kind of ratios in there and what kind of differentials in there. There we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull this off and take a look at it. Yeah, there's some foaming going on in there. This is hot because I just drove it, and there's a lot of crud buildup in here, but there's foam. I'm surprised how much foam. There should be anti-foaming agents in the differential fluid that keeps it from doing that. And I know that you can't see this, but there is a lot of soapy bubbles. Of course, that's not soap. I might have dodged a bullet as far as changing this fluid, even though it didn't act like it needed it. Alright, so I got some rags stuffed in here, and I got some brake cleaner. So what I'm going to do is just spray this down and let it accumulate on the rags. At that point, I will pull those rags out and then maybe stuff in another set of clean rags and try it a little bit more. Alright, so what I did was I cheated a little bit. I went ahead and got my little Scotch-Brite out, and I cleaned up the perimeter of this housing so I can make sure that all the debris was off there, which it was pretty much. And then I'll do a final wipe down with some brake clean here, and even though it's shiny, like you see, which you would think means it's clean metal, you know, you can see how dirty it still is. Go ahead and get this thing up here now. Alright guys, you can see I've got the cover back up on here. I've got all the bolts started by hand, except for this one that was on my wrench. And I've got Indian head or Permatex gasket on the gasket itself. Now I'm going to do some cross torquing with the wrench, and then I'll actually do a torque with my torque wrench of 32 foot-pounds. We'll come back and hopefully I'll have you on the front of the differential and we'll be filling it. So the sensor is right on the top, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull apart the tangs that hold it on. Here's the plug. Nothing special, just 2 wires. This plug right here, this is the fill plug. This is where you're going to fill it up at. It's a square, just like your ratchet would go into the socket. Just pretend that's a socket. Now if you're just checking your rear differential fluid, this is all you have to do, is just loosen this plug, and then whenever you pull the plug, some should come out and run out here. If not, just put your finger in there, and if you can just barely dip your finger down and the tip of your pinky has some on there, then you know you've got it topped off. In my case, I need to clean this plug, and since this is empty, since I just changed that differential cover, this is where I need to fill it. Now, I can cheat a little bit since I'm pulling this sensor out, and I can fill it up in that hole if I want. But I wanted to tell you how to do it the correct way. Yeah, there we go. Go ahead and try to pry this out easy. We don't want it to break. Might have to do a little twisting first. Okay, so about 5 minutes has passed and I'm working this out. I'm finally getting some progress on it, and again, I'm just moving it ever so slightly back and forth, and there, finally, yay! It finally come loose. Alright guys, I apologize. I forgot that the time was turned back and I'm running out of daylight. I wonder why it was so dark. I mean, I normally shoot my videos this time of day, and I thought it was kind of strange. Alright, so I'm pouring it in. I don't know if you can see it, but I guess I could have gotten this angle earlier if it wasn't for the fact that I have a light in here now and the camera. There we go. So just ignore all this crap that's out here. That's just what leaked from up top. And you look for something to run out here. The last bottle, and we're definitely going to see some coming out with this bottle. Alright, so let's go ahead and squeeze in. And again, as soon as we start seeing some come out this hole right here, we need to quit putting it in, because it's just going to come right back out again. Oh, there it is. Alright, just let that run. Let's see. Got a rag here to catch this. Go ahead and put the sensor back in. And again, it's a tight fit, so we're going to have to wiggle it down in there to where it's seated. Start this bolt as best as possible. Okay, that is tight. So now I can plug this back in. Make sure the clips engage. So now the drain plug that I cleaned up, it is magnetic. I'll put a little RTV on the plug. I am going to get my brake clean and I'm going to spray all this down That way it's easier to find leaks. At this point, we're pretty much done, other than checking for leaks. All right, guys, so you can see it is bone dry. This is the next morning. Let me show you the rear. And there you have it. The cover is changed and it's all solid. All right, guys, so you can see what's involved. Just normal maintenance, but this tow vehicle's slowly getting to where it needs to be. I appreciate you guys watching, and as always, I hope to see you out there. Bye.